let me say, a word in defense of reason in dialogue with faith.
Because faith is that proof. Faith unites us to that substance.
But reason, in order to realize its full potential, needs the horizons revealed by and truths contained in the faith. And not just any faith, but the Catholic faith.
Why do we begin the Bible with marriage? And in the middle of the Bible, we have a book about marriage. And at the end of the Bible, we have the wedding of the Lamb, you know? Why don't we focus on something else? Why don't we focus on cross-stitch? You know, begin with cross-stitching and then have a book about cross-stitching and then end with the great cross-stitching party of the Lamb or something. Or food preparation. You know, actually there is a food theme there. We could explore that. Or, you know, basically the idea is, why not some other human endeavor? Why is it marriage that we find at the beginning, middle, and end? What is it about it? Okay? And so now we got to get theological, and we recognize then that marriage is an icon of God's relationship to humanity. Because God relates to us via a covenant, and covenant is the extension of kinship by oath. Let's explain that a little bit. This definition of covenant is my preferred definition. And some of you, if you've read my stuff or listened to CDs or so on, you may have heard me mention this before. But covenant is a legal way to make a person part of your family if they're not already a blood relative. And the reason why God deals with us in covenants, it's like, oh goodness, all these covenants. You know, I went through some of them in my talk this morning, you know. The fourth Eucharistic prayer says, again and again you offered a covenant to man, and through the prophets you taught him to hope for salvation. That's the fourth Eucharistic prayer. That's the summation of salvation history in the fourth Eucharistic prayer. And like, why? Okay, why again and again? What is God trying to do? You know, what's the point? You know, why does he keep offering these covenants? The point is to invite us into his family. Okay? God wants to make us part of his family. And we're not part of his family naturally. Okay? We're not God's stuff. Okay? The other ancient peoples, some other ancient Near Eastern cultures beside the Israelites, did have myths about humanity being birthed from the gods. But we don't have in Genesis some kind of myth about a mother goddess giving birth to us, in which case we would share the same nature as the goddess or something like that. Okay? In Genesis, we have a true account of the creation of mankind. So we are creatures. We aren't the divine substance. Okay, so we're, as it were, not naturally the kin or the family of God. But God is a family. That's why we call him Father, Son, and Spirit. Father and Son are familial terms, okay, persons of a family. So we can think of the Trinity using an analogy, and it's not a perfect analogy, but it's a useful analogy, as a family and a flow of love between the three persons, which is a familial love. And God wants to invite us to participate in that flow of family love that goes between Father, Son, and Spirit. And his invitation is the covenant, which is an extension of kinship by oath, as I said. In the ancient world, if you wanted to adopt a son, you would take the son in front, you take an orphan boy, for example, in front of the village elders, and in their presence you would swear an oath to that boy to be his father, and then when you went home, he was now legally your son. Likewise, most ancient marriage ceremonies involved oath swearing between the husband and the wife. And once you swore the oaths, now you were man and wife and you were a family unit. And that's still the case. That's still the case in our liturgy. When I was married, my wife and I, it was a Protestant church, we were Protestants at the time. My father, who was a pastor, performed the ceremony, had us recite the vows, but I said, I, John, take thee, Dawn, to be my lawfully wedded wife, and then I included a bunch of promises, and at the end I said, till death do us part, okay? And that was my marriage vow, Okay, that's a kind of an oath that I took. What I was doing was giving my promises that I would list, do all these things, take you to be my wife, in sickness and health, etc. And then I put my whole life behind it, okay, by saying, till death do us part. And when you give your word and you put your life behind it, that's what an oath is, okay? So that's why, you know, kids will swear an oath and they'll make a promise and they'll say, cross my heart and hope to die. You know what the reason for that is? They're putting their whole life on the line to back up their words, okay? And it's the putting of your life on the line that makes your word into an oath. And just as a side remark, God's whole way of dealing with us has a kind of oath pattern, because the Father sends His Word, which is the second person, and then He sends His Spirit, which is His life, okay? So He gives us His Word and He backs it up with His life. That's what an oath is, and an oath forms a covenant. So the processions of the second and third persons of the Trinity from the Father are, in a sense, the basic form of the covenant that invites us into relationship with the Father.